Thanks, everyone. Thanks for the organizer to give me the opportunity to present our work here today. So this talk will be about our project on the comprehensive evaluation of approaches for the long-read de novo transcriptome analysis. So for those who are not familiar with de novo transcriptome analysis, when you get a sequencing data, like the standard way, like typical way, we map the reads back to the reference genome, which include the genomic sequence as well as the gene and exon sequences. This information is well curated for human and other model organisms. However, for a lot of other non-model organisms, this is not available. So when we don't have this one, we can still do this RNA sequencing experiments, but the downstream analysis steps will be slightly different. So what we typically will do is we do a de novo transcriptome assembly, which construct the de novo transcriptome directly from the sequencing reads. And this de novo assembled transcriptome can be further polished and made into contigs or as a surrogate of transcripts. This then can be used for downstream analysis, usually through the pseudo-alignment algorithms. So with the long-read development, with the development of long-read technologies, these days, people not only relying on the short-read sequencing to obtain a de novo transcriptome. Now we can try to use the long-read to directly obtain the transcriptome, which was thought to be more comprehensive and includes the complete isoforms. So this is like to solving the puzzles. When you have short reads, you have lots of pieces of puzzles, but when you have longer reads, you have larger pieces, but like smaller number. So it in theory should make things easier. However, intrinsically for some of the technology, especially nanopore, you have a little bit higher error rate compared to short read Illumina sequencing. And also with the increase of the short read length, the computational burden was increased substantially compared to the short read. So in the field, we're still not sure how we should apply the long-read de novo transcriptome assembly and whether this is useful or is worth doing that. Although we already have a lot of applications of the short-read de novo transcriptome in non-model organisms, particularly in agriculture, marine biology, or even sometimes in cancers to identify novel isoforms, this hasn't been studied well in the long-read settings. So here we designed a study, firstly to benchmarking several tools using 5 different data sets. 4 of them are from the human, where we already have a well-documented reference. This is just for comparison or evaluation of the performance. One of the data sets is from the P, which is a non-model organisms, which we don't have a curated genome and gene sequences. In these data sets, we will use we have the simulation data and the spiking data, which we have the ground truth. And for the rest, if we don't have ground truth, we run this Mambu algorithm, which is a genome-guided isoform detection tool to obtain the ground truth. Further, we run three latest de novo assemblers specifically designed for long read, which is Rattle, Iron Bloom 2, and Azon 4. Where when the data set include a matched short read, we can also run a standard gold standard short read assembler Trinity for comparison of long read and short read performances. So the Trinity is only available to 4 of the data set except from the single cell PacBio sequencing data. We then evaluate a lot of downstream analysis to characterize the quality of the assemblies and its impact for downstream analysis. So in the interest of time today, I will just be looking at, I'm not sure why it shows a little bit blurry. Is people able to read these? Because it shows very blurry from my end. Anyway, so for the interest of time today, I will just walk you through 2 of the example data set. The result is quite consistent across all of them. Here, I just show, firstly, the number of transcripts being assembled from each of the tools from the PCR CDN data from nanopore, which includes 16 million reads, which is a relatively big data set. The other one is the single cell data from the PacBio, which include only 15 million reads. So you can see that all the de novo assemblers generate more than the number of reference transcripts in most of the cases, especially Iron Bloom 2 generate lots of transcripts, which even though a lot of them are matching or partially matching to the reference transcript, a lot of them are having the novel splicing junction usage or even the novel exonic sequences. So this is also observed when we look at the expression levels. So when we try to characterize whether each of the tools can recover the transcript from different expression quantiles, we basically bring the reference transcript into 10 quantiles from the lowest expressed to the highest expressed. And you can see consistently, ion bloom 2, which is the orange line, outperform all the other methods across all the expression quantiles. The green line, Redo, is consistently underperformed. So no matter whether it's for the highly expressed one or lowly expressed one, it doesn't really assemble all of them. Where the blue line is sort of expression dependent. So before we go for the downstream analysis, especially at the gene level, because the direct output from the de novo assembly is a sequence of transcripts, so we need to perform a clustering. So basically, group the transcript into genes. So what is done usually is based on sequence similarities. So you can imagine that as a like sequence alignment task. So you basically group the transcript based on how similar they are and form a cluster of transcript, and then we define these as genes. So these genes are not accurate. Sometimes they contain very similar sequences, even across different gene clusters, and sometimes they can be just containing like artifact sequences. This process was usually done for some of the assemblers. For example, is on form and Erdo, because it intrinsically, when it processes data, it has a clustering step. Whereas for ion bloom 2, which is the tool, the orange tool in the previous slide, it doesn't have this step. So we need to manually do this. So after we cluster the transcript into genes, we can then try to quantify the transcript expression as well as the gene expression from the de novo point of view. So when we look at the de novo transcript, we try to assign de novo transcript to a reference transcript and compare their expression, so how well they are correlated. So on the left-hand side is the correlation of transcript, de novo transcript versus the reference transcript. You can see the ion bloom 2 outperform in most of the scenarios, because, as I said, the is on form didn't really work for the 60 million PCR cDNA data. So we don't have that assembly for PCR cDNA. But when we look at the single cell data where the is on form is able to generate reasonable assemblies, it slightly outperforms ion bloom 2. This observation is also true when we look at the gene level, although you can appreciate that when we look at gene level, the correlation is much higher. So it's more reliable, the quantification becomes more reliable when we aggregate the transcripts. So since we have now here the single cell RNA sequencing data, so an interesting thing to look at is whether the de novo transcriptome can be used to do single cell clustering tasks. Because when we get the single cell sequencing, usually we will cluster cells into different clusters, usually represent different functions or subtypes of cells. And this is often done with the reference transcript. So if you look at the panel I'm showing here, this is the UMAP generated from the reference transcript quantification and the reference gene quantification. You can clearly see the separation from myeloid cells to the lymphoid cells on the left and right. And then even the T cells can be subdivided into T cell subsets, including CD4 and CD8 T cells. What if we look at the de novo transcriptome? When we use the de novo transcriptome to quantify the de novo transcript expression and de novo gene expressions, we can still see this pattern was generally preserved, even though we're looking at a much large number of transcripts now, and even large number of genes in the de novo setting. But the pattern is still very similar. You can see that separation between lymphoid and myeloid cells, as well as the subtype of the T cells being preserved. This is also true when you even looking at more noisy, like people will think the transcript level data will be noisy compared to the gene level data. But this is still true. All the patterns are being preserved at the transcript level. So the next interesting thing is when we get the gene or transcript level expressions, naturally, people will compare between conditions to obtain a set of differentially expressed genes and use that for either biomarker or treatment or patient selections. So what we are looking at here is that how well the de novo transcriptome can be used to do this task. So here is the ROC-like plot showing the number of differentially expressed genes selected by each of the methods. And if you're familiar with the plot, you know that the line that is above all the others will be the best performance. So you can see that the orange line here is the IMBM2. Usually it shows higher true positive and low false positive across two different data sets. If we look at the transcript level, the advantages of the IMBM2 is still there, and the difference or the difference between the IMBM2 versus the other method is even larger. So the last task we want to perform with the de novo transcriptome is that because we directly assemble the transcript from the read, so it will contain a lot more information that are not being documented in the reference annotations. For example, novel isoforms or novel genes. So we specifically look for novel differentially expressed transcripts and ask whether they can be important or functionally relevant in different cell lines or cancers. Since we have the data from two different cancer cell lines for the PCR CDN data, I'm just showing you an example that we find from this data set. So you can see this is IGV track from the chromosome 8. On the top is H1975, a lung cancer cell line, and on the bottom is another lung cancer cell line with different mutations. However, if you see that these two cell lines, they differ by this fusion transcript, that is RPL7 intergenic fusion fused with the intergenic region of chromosome 8, another distal region in the chromosome 8. So this fusion is not being documented in the CCLE transcriptome data, presumably because the CCLE fusion detection was done on a short read, and it was not being able to detect this large fusion partners. And we validate that. We found that in the CCLE whole genome sequencing data, there was a breakpoint right at this point, and that bridging these two parts in the chromosome 8. So, just to summarize what we have found by this exercise using the de novo transcriptome to perform different tasks of the analysis, is that we found that the de novo transcriptome, firstly, it is very useful in quantification, as well as you can use that for single cell clustering. You can also use that for differential expression. Furthermore, it includes more information that are not being documented in the annotations. Currently, we see that IMBM2 is working best in most scenarios. However, we do expect substantial improvement of current method because we find the computational efficiency is not ideal, and there was a lot of high error regions were not being solved correctly. All the data all the assembled data and all the code are available. And if you're interested about our work, please feel free to read this preprint that are on the bioRxiv. So lastly, I just thank our lab for supporting this project and all the collaborators that are involved in this project, as well as our funding bodies. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, very nice work. So I have a few quick questions. One is that, I'm curious if you have evaluated the performance of de novo assembly on, duplicated, regions, including genes from large gene families, whether you have good performance over there. And the second question is that, just have a question about the last slide on the fusion call. Are you saying that you won't be able to call that fusion if you just apply a standard long read fusion caller on the long read data?
Okay, thanks for the question. So for the first question, it is very interesting. We also had a check of our de novo assembled transcript in two aspects. One is whether it contains repetitive sequences. That might not be directly relevant, but we found that this is similar to what we saw. The percentage of repetitive sequence is similar to the reference annotation. But we also further, like you suggested, there will be large gene families, and these families will contain very similar transcripts of similar genes. This problem was still seen because, when we get the transcript from the de novo assembly, we don't have the gene by definition. We have to use either their clustering algorithms or like external clustering algorithm. All of these algorithms cannot solve the gene family issues. So you will see multiple gene clusters, but they will be very similar, and they will have sometimes they will have transcript mixed to each other. So this is not being solved at the moment. We saw this issue as well. As for the fusion callers, there's the specific one that I show you here was not called by long read fusion caller as well. Potentially, I guess it's because the current long read, because our lab also developed long read fusion callers, there was quite a few cutoff and threshold was being manually implemented, which might filter this out. So we didn't go into the details, but perhaps that's one of the reasons. But we did look at the short read ones, which is well documented in the CCLE. It doesn't appear, but it's only supported by genomic sequencing. Thanks.
Yeah. Alex, a very quick question is, in your de novo analysis, do you see the novel transcript mainly from like a novel transcription start site or novel TSS or novel poly A site, or they have some novel exon usage?
Thanks for the question. So here, the bar chart I showed, which highlights the number of novel isoforms, is based on the splice junction usage. So if, let's say, for example, if the transcript we have different junction usage, it will be identified as novel isoforms. And if the coding, if the sequence of the de novo transcript is totally different from the exons that are documented, it will be labeled as novel genes. So it depends on how you label that. We didn't specifically look at UTRs, but a lot of the thing we noticed was intronic or intergenic artifacts, as well as splicing usage. Thanks.